Okay, so this is section 6.3. We're looking at day 2, and here on this video, we're actually going to be multiplying monomial and binomial radicals now. So the previous video, we talked about how to multiply monomials and binomials with just variables and numbers. Well, now we're going to involve radicals in there. So I've kind of put a 3-step process to it here. As you look here, first step, we're going to distribute. If it's a monomial times a binomial, we'll distribute. If it's 2 binomials, we'll FOIL it. Okay, so you're either going to distribute or FOIL to get rid of the parentheses. Then once you do that, once you distribute or you FOIL, you might have to break down some roots. So, for example, if I give you the square root of 20, we're going to have to break that down to simplify it. So that way we can end up either adding or subtracting like roots. So break down any roots possible that can be broken down. Then the third step here is combine all like radicals using addition or subtraction. So essentially we just have to clean it up at the end. Okay, let's take a look at some examples here in your notes, and we'll look at this first example just right here. It says simplify 5 times the square root of 10 times the quantity the square root of 2 plus the square root of 3. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to do here is distribute to get rid of my parentheses. So I'm taking 5 times the square root of 10 times the square root of 2. So 5 square root of 10 times the square root of 2 is 5 times the square root of 20 plus 5 square root of 10 times the square root of 3 is 5 times the square root of 30. Okay, now you'll notice that these two items are not like terms because I have a 20 and a 30 underneath. So the next step here that I want to do is I want to break this down. I know 20 will go down to 4 and 5. And I know 4 will go to 2 and 2. So this is 5 times the square root of 2 squared times 5. In other words, the 2 comes out. 5 times 2 square root of 5. So this is 10 times the square root of 5. Then I got to check 30. 30 goes to 6 and 5, and then 3 and 2. Now, you'll notice when you break down 30, are there any pairs there? No, there's not. So because there's no pairs, I can't simplify that anymore. So I'm just going to simply write 5 times the square root of 30. This is my final simplified answer. It's all the further I can go. Okay, so second example, distributive property here again. Okay, this time I have the square root of 3 outside, so we're going to multiply that by there and by there. So 5 times the square root of 3 is 5 square root of 3, plus the square root of 3 times 2 square root of 6 is 2 times the square root of 18. Okay, so now 3, we can't break that down, but 18 we can, 9 and 2, and then 3 and 3. So I have 2 times the square root of 3 squared times 2, the 3 going to come out. So these are skills that we learned when we were breaking down roots, times the square root of 2. So 3 times 2, this first term here stays the same. So 3 times 2 is 6. So this is going to be 6 times the square root of 2. Now you'll notice, again, these guys are not like terms, so we cannot combine those. That is my final answer. Now, the ones with the distributive property like this, you'll see you won't have a ton of simplifying to do. All right, let's go to the binomials now. These ones make it a little bit tougher. Okay, so again, still going to use the same method. We're going to use FOIL. If I FOIL this, first times first, square root of 5 times square root of 4 is the square root of 20. Square root of 5 times negative 3 square root 2 is negative 3 square root 10. Negative 2 square root of 2 times the square root of 4 is negative 2 times the square root of 8. And negative 2 square root 2 times negative 3 square root 2 is positive 6. I take 3 times 2. And then square root 2 times square root 2 is the square root of 4. Okay, so now I got some things to break down here. Okay, so let's start. We go 20 again. 20 is 4 and 5 and 2 and 2. Okay, so I got 2 pairs of 2. So this is going to be the square root of 2 squared times 5, or that's 2 square root of 5. Okay, 10 breaks down into 2 and 5. So I can't do anything with the 10 because there's no pairs. So that's going to come down. 8. 8 goes to 2 and 4, and then 2 and 2. So 8 is, let's see here, 2 times the square root of 2 squared times 2. This 2 comes out. So 2 times 2 is 4 times the square root of 2. And then the square root of 4 is the same thing as the square root of 2 squared. The square root of 4 is just 2. So that's going to be 6 times 2, which is 12. Now, if you look at this list of items, are there any like terms? No, there are not. That is your final answer. Okay, quickly look at this last example here. Again, foiling it. So square root of 5 times square root of 5. I'm going to write this as the square root of 25. Square root of 5 times negative 2 is negative 2 square root of 5. 5 times the square root of 5 is 5 square root of 5. And then 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Okay, so now, square root of 25, that's 5. So I got minus 2 square root of 5, and then plus 5 square root of 5, minus 10. Okay, so now this guy and this guy are like terms, and these two are like terms in the middle. So 5 and negative 10 is negative 5. Negative 2 square root 5 and positive 5 square root 5 is positive 3 square root of 5. And you can't do anything else with those guys, so that is your simplified answer. Now this is a good example of a problem that has a little bit of simplifying to do once you've used the FOIL method. Okay, so now you should be able to complete the second page of your class kick examples on 6.3 day 2.